to It Happened in Grand Prairie, a history tape number 24 in our series for the sesquicentennial. And this is September the 8th, 1986, and we are so excited today to have three very special guests, all with the last name of Kiesler. And we're just so excited to welcome Mr. L.E. Kiesler and Cymbeline Kiesler and Judge Mike Kiesler. How wonderful of you all to come and share the things about Grand Prairie, Texas with us. And first of all, let's start with you, Mr. L.E. Kiesler, since you're to my right and so accessible to us. You're a very special young man in the history of Grand Prairie, Texas. You are now in retirement, but in the past you have been a mover and shaker in Grand Prairie, Texas. And we'd like for you to look right out into your camera and maybe tell us a little bit about your family history, about your genealogy, the name of your mother and father, and when they came to Grand Prairie and from whence they came. And would you look out and just give us a few minutes about the Kieslers? Would you do that?
Oh, I'll be glad to.
Wonderful.
My father and mother moved here in 1920.
Okay.
And they moved from Marshall. And my mother was born in Cherokee County near Rusk. And my father was born in Atlanta, Texas.
All right, now your dad's name was L.E. Kiesler Sr., but now give us your mother's name and her maiden name so we'll have this for our history tape.
Oh, my mother's name was Lily Ann Martin before she married.
All right.
And well, her parents were born and raised over in the same part of the country where she was. My dad's parents come from Alabama, and both of them were born in Alabama.
All right, now your parents came to Grand Prairie. Who did they bring to Grand Prairie with them? How many children were there?
There was 5 of us.
5 of them. Would you like to name drop and tell about the names of your brothers and sisters so we would have that for the record?
Yes. My oldest sister is Mrs. Neville Hall. Her name is Ione.
And she lives where?
She lives on the
Here in
Elm Street. Yes.
Here in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
And she's my oldest sister.
All right.
And then I have a sister that was next to her, Sam Davis's wife. Her name is Kate Davis. They used to live on Bottom Street.
All right, and she passed away.
She died about 4 years ago.
All righty.
And then I had a brother next to her named Roger. He lived on 4th Street, Southwest 4th, yeah.
All right.
And then I had another brother named Carson. He lived in our old home place up on College.
All right. What was the number of the old home place on College?
We didn't have numbers then.
Oh, you didn't.
It was in the 500 block.
All right.
And we had more boys living in that street than anywhere in Grand Prairie.
All right.
We had enough to have baseball team, basketball team, and we played football up there too.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, were you born in Grand Prairie, Texas?
No, I moved in when I was 10 years old.
You were 10 years old. Okay.
And I moved in 1920.
In 1920.
And Sam moved in 1918.
All right. Now, you haven't told us your magic age or anything like that, so we would like to know that if you'd like to put that on record. Otherwise, you can tell me 39.
They all know my age here because I will be 77 this coming December.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right, now growing up in Grand Prairie, coming here when you were 10, you just had to go to the little red schoolhouse that was up on College Street.
College?
Yes.
Yes, that was the first through the 11th.
All right, and what year did you graduate from Grand
I finished high school here in 1928.
1928,
Yeah.
That was a good year, wasn't it?
Yes, it's a very good year.
All right, in your high school days, do you have your most favorite teacher of all, Mr. Kiesler?
Oh, I had so many good teachers.
All right.
I guess the teacher that we appreciate more now than any we had was Benny Grimes, who was by the way, was our football coach.
Oh, yeah?
And he taught us history. And now taught us English history, and we go now back over to England, and so much of that refreshes you.
Yes.
It's
Very
wonderful.
exciting, isn't
yeah, it's oh, I get so enthused about seeing things over there, that he's
That he
told
told
us
you
about.
that.
Yes.
All right. Now, tell me this, Mr. Kiesler. I know you must have been important in sports.
No.
Would you ever play football or anything
Oh,
like
yeah, I
that?
played 4 years. First year as a substitute. Next year I played in the line. No, I played in next year.
All
The
right.
next year I played a halfback. Next year I was quarterback. I was captain the last year.
And who was the coach?
Oh, Benny Grimes was our first coach, and then
All
we
right.
had 2 or 3 other coaches. We had a fellow coach named Matheson,
All
and
right.
then we had Gentry, C.B. Gentry coached us. But we had one coach. We didn't have coaches like they have today, and he coached all sports.
Right now, when you finish school, and then I know that some magic date, and we're going to ask Cymbeline about this, about when you all met and courted and
Oh,
wed
Lord.
and all this good stuff. But tell us what you did for a living in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Oh, I first worked I used to work at Miller Drug. In fact, I worked at Jerk Soda there before Miller owned it. It used to be Harston.
The Harstons.
Harston, yeah.
Wonderful. All right.
And then I worked for Miller, and then I worked for TNP Railroad,
all right.
and then I
What'd
worked.
you do for the TNP Railroad?
Oh, I was a department accountant over there.
How marvelous.
Then I worked for the Grand Prairie Lumber Company. And
What did you do at the Grand Prairie Lumber
well, I
Company?
started off as a bookkeeper, and then I got to be manager.
And where was this located at the time you
It's
were?
across from a Mercantile Bank. It's on-
Where the M Bank is
Yeah,
now.
right across the street.
Where the Volkswagen place is today on Main Street, there at the corner of 2nd Street and Main.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
it's on
The old Woolworth
north
building.
Yeah, the old Woolworth building. We used to be, we had about 225 feet along there, and it was valued on lumberyard books as the value of $225 for that 225
Strip.
feet there.
Oh, that is,
Yep.
that was kind of back in the dark
Uh-huh.
ages, wasn't it? All right, all right.
Oh.
We're going to get to Cymbeline
Yeah,
next,
you
but we're
better
going
get to it.
we're going to come back to you in a minute. Cymbeline, as the wife of this industrialist, we're going to call him here today, tell us a little bit about your family history and genealogy, and look out into your camera. We want to know about the Neals and what brought them to Grand Prairie, and about maybe your forefathers and where they came from. Would you do that for us?
Well, my father and mother came from Alabama. My father was born in Kentucky,
All right.
and he went to Cumberland University, was a graduate of Cumberland University, and he was a minister.
All right, now give us his full name so we'll have that on the record.
His name was Thomas Edward
Neal.
Neal,
And that's spelled in an unusual way. Tell us how you spell it.
N-E-E-L.
N-E-E-L, okay. And your mother's full name, including the maiden name.
Her name was Mary Willie Button. She was one of the old blue hens chickens of Alabama
Wonderful. And they came to Texas
in a covered wagon.
in a covered wagon. In
Yes.
what year?
I don't know.
You don't know the year.
I
And where
don't
did
know.
they settle when they came?
Well, they settled first in Oklahoma.
All right.
When there was a dispute about the boundary.
All
It's
right.
in Greer County.
All right.
Then it became Oklahoma territory.
Mm-hmm.
And they came on to Greenville,
To Greenville, Texas.
And I was born in Greenville.
You were born in Greenville, Texas. And what is the magic year of your birth, are you telling?
Well, I dare not lie. There'd always be somebody here to surface and tell on me.
Right.
I was born 1908.
Wonderful year. Good. And when did you all come to Grand Prairie, Texas from Greenville?
1918.
1918. And what brought you to Grand Prairie, Texas?
My
Cymbeline?
father retired
Your
and
father
bought a home
retired.
here.
And where did you move to in Grand Prairie, Texas? Can you tell us the proximity of the home that you lived
Oh,
in?
yes. We lived in East Grand Prairie, not too far from the First National Bank. Used to be First National
All
Bank.
right. About Northeast 8th Street in Grand Prairie, Main Street, which is
Ninth
Highway
Street.
80, on 9th Street.
Yeah.
Good.
And they took part of my father's property for the highway.
Wonderful. That's good. And when you came to Grand Prairie, Texas, how old were you and did you go to school?
I was 10. It was my first
Public
year
school?
of school.
Your first
I was
year
a
of public
case
school.
of arrested development.
That's exciting. We have a lot of homeschooling now, and I know that a resident development young student did very well in Grand Prairie High School. And when you got to Grand Prairie, tell me a little bit about your school.
Nobody wanted me.
Oh, they didn't
in
want
there.
you?
No.
Oh, dear.
Because I couldn't draw within the lines.
I see.
My mother took me out and said, draw that tree, draw that house. So they gave me these hectographed pictures, and every now and then they'd give me a horse to color, and I'd put a bow on his head.
That
Didn't do.
All right. And finally, when you graduated from Grand Prairie High School, what was the magic year?
1925.
1925. Now, who were your favorite teachers? The ones that impressed you the most?
Verena Height
Verena
and
Height
Benny Grimes.
and Benny Grimes were your two favorite
Yes.
teachers. Oh, that is wonderful. And then on from graduating from school, tell us what happened to you next.
Well, I went to
chronologically.
NTAC
All right.
2 years,
All right.
graduated, and got a certificate to teach. My father had died, and my mother and I always lived together.
All right.
And so I taught school until the 30s.
All right. Where did you teach?
I taught in El Dorado,
All right.
Texas,
El
my
Dorado,
first
Texas.
year.
Okay.
30 miles from a railroad. Taught there 1 year and went to Mercedes and taught.
All right.
And then went back to the University of Texas. For
To
a
finish
year.
your degree. All right. Now, how did you meet this
We went to
good-looking young man?
We were in school together.
You were in school together. All
High
right.
school, grade school.
All right. And what was the magic year that you all married?
We married in 1940.
1940. That was a magic year.
Well, sure.
It certainly was. And tell us from that, I know that you have at least one child on this set here today, your young son, Mike. And do
We
you have
have
any
a
other
daughter.
children?
A daughter who is a teacher here.
All right. Now give us her full name and where she teaches in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Her name is Mary Cymbeline Kiesler, and she teaches at Lee, well, Jarrett now, but she teaches at Lee.
At Lee Middle School. And what does she teach?
She teaches English.
Wonderful. And that's your wonderful family that's come along. And I know that being a retired teacher and a retired couple that's meant so much to the history of Grand Prairie, Texas, but you are going to pass the wand on now to your famous son here on your right. And let's interview Judge Mike Kiesler next. Mike Kiesler, welcome to It Happened in Grand Prairie.
Thank you.
We're just so glad to have you with us. You are one of the more famous people in Grand Prairie, Texas, that is a product of the Grand Prairie schools. Tell us a little bit about the schools that you attended in Grand Prairie and maybe some of the things that have been important to you here in Grand Prairie, Texas, sir.
Well, I went to grade school in Harlingen. We moved to the Valley for a time between about 1945 and 1958. We moved back here that year, and I finished high school here in 1960. And so I was here from my sophomore through senior years, and then went from here to the University of Texas for undergraduate school and law school. Finished up there in 1967 and came back, practiced law here for a brief time, and then went to the district attorney's office in Dallas for 12 years and was appointed to the bench in 1981 by Governor Clements.
Now, when you were in Grand Prairie High School, the 1958, 59, and 60s those were very rich years for Grand Prairie, I know, because you were a part of the scene. Can you tell us anything about attending Grand Prairie High School, who the principal might be, maybe some of your favorite teachers, and certainly any that might have motivated you to go into your career that you're into now.
I had a lot of very good teachers here. Tom Holly was the principal my junior and senior years. Lloyd Bowes was principal my sophomore year when I first arrived here. I had so many fine teachers. Of course, I had Miss Hyde also.
Yes.
Mother had her a number of years before, but I had her in 1958 when I first moved here. Had a lady by the name of Ellen Roy that taught English that was very good. A fellow by the name of Neil Kilgore that taught chemistry. Chemistry.
Sciences.
And then also had, of course, Earl Tom Keel taught choir for so many years here and was delightful to. It was really great being in his class. But gosh, I had so many real fine teachers here in Grand Prairie, and I guess all of them motivated me to do the best I could anyway.
Well, now, Mike, I remember you more lovingly as a senior with the lead in the Capers, because I happen to have a daughter that had the female lead
also,
in the
yes.
very same thing.
Xana.
And you and Xana were together. And what was the name of your Capers?
We were in Carousel together, and it was a lot of fun. Xana was real talented, and I haven't seen her in a long while, but remember her so fondly. She's a fine girl.
All right, now, here you were excelling in music, and I would have expected you to become probably a musical talent on Broadway because you sang. Have you lost this talent for music, or are you still, is that kind of unsung with your new career?
Oh, well, of course I don't sing in the courtroom real often. I like to sing at church and
Yes.
sing in the shower pretty much, but that's fairly much the extent of it.
And you certainly would be a good candidate for the community chorus that they're getting ready to revitalize here in Grand Prairie.
Well, I sang in that a couple of years ago, and it's a lot of fun and real rewarding.
All right. All right, now let's get back to Mr. L.E. Mike, you have a very famous father here, and it's very exciting to have him on the show today. Now, Mr. Giesler, when you were working down on the Strip, which is Old Grand Prairie Main Street, who were some of the, I would say, some of your peers that impressed you, that were movers and shakers in the community, that had lots of things going to help Grand Prairie?
Well, Dewey Miller's always been very muchly a mover and shaker.
All right.
And we had Dr. Shanks, who was
All right.
very good.
Very good.
And then we had Dr. Copeland, who was very muchly. And, I don't know, you asked me a question here. You was Harry Turner and Ethel Turner?
Yes.
And, yeah. And then, of course, in the early days, there at the bank was the Wagners.
I see. Now, what Wagners were these?
Oh.
I'm not familiar with those.
No, but that goes on back in the 20s and 30s there.
Yes.
J.F. Wagner was president of the bank.
And that's
And he
the
was
Grand Prairie State
Grand Prairie
Bank?
State Bank, yeah. Used to just be one.
I see. That was before the Turner reign.
Oh, yeah, that's Fort Turner, yeah.
All right, now, I know you didn't have Rotary Club then. Probably not Optimist. Did the men have any sort of club, like a merchant's club or anything that you belonged to, or a chamber of commerce? Or?
We had a Chamber of Commerce,
I see.
but then in 1940 we formed the Rotary Club. Dewey and I, or two of the charter members,
Oh, you
still left in
are.
it, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. But prior to that, prior to the 1940s, did the fellows have any kind of an organization, or was the Masonic
yes.
group?
The Masonic group was
oh,
very
I
active,
see.
yeah.
All right.
And then we had all kind of softball teams. Each business there had a softball team, as we.
All right. Now, your grandfather was a Presbyterian minister, and Cymbaline's father was a Presbyterian minister. Would that tell us that you leaned toward the Presbyterians during this tenure?
We had a long time we were
All right.
Presbyterians.
All right.
We left the Presbyterian Church after we come back uptown and went to the Episcopal Church. But, most of the time we had, most of our life we were Presbyterians, wasn't it? Sure.
Wonderful. All right, now, Cymbeline, when you were a teacher, and also a parent. Were you involved in the PTAs and all of these activities? What did you do as a housewife other than being a school teacher here in Grand Prairie,
As
Texas?
a housewife, well, I taught a Sunday school class of over 100 adults. I belonged to the PEO. I belonged to the PTA, and I was active in the church women's group. I don't know how I did it all.
Well, isn't that the truth? All right, now, Cymbeline, do you have any special hobbies that you enjoy doing? Like reading, or do you
Reading.
crochet, or?
Reading, I do needlepoint. I can crochet, I don't. And I don't do cooking anymore. I did enough of it. And
All right, now, where do you two reside in Grand Prairie, Texas now?
we live out in Wildwood Oaks on Tioga Street.
And do you like it in that part of Grand Prairie,
Love
Texas?
it.
You have all the trees, don't you?
Yes, and we used to picnic along that creek, Rock Creek,
Yeah, it's called Rock Creek, yeah.
when we were younger.
When you were younger, you would take a little sojourn and go out that way. How would you get out there from Grand Prairie,
Walk.
Texas? Walk from Grand Prairie, Texas. You didn't have a car or anything like this. You would do
No.
all of the walking. Well, did you walk to school, both of you?
Yes, I walked over a mile,
And she used to go home for lunch.
walked home for lunch.
Well, what did your parents do here in Grand Prairie,
Oh, my
Texas?
my
Mr.
father
Keith?
was a telegraph operator here for TP Railroad.
Was a telegraph operator for the
Yeah,
TMP.
right here, when we used to have the...
What year did he become the telegraph
Oh,
operator?
Lord.
Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yeah.
We moved here in 1920, and he was a telegraph operator then.
That's when he
Yeah.
came here. Had he been a telegraph
Yes.
operator prior to that
Oh,
time,
yes,
and
number of
where?
Oh, we lived in Louisiana, and first place we moved to Wascom, a little place out of Marshall.
Oh, yes, right
Yeah,
across the
yeah,
line in
yeah.
Louisiana.
1 mile from the county line, yeah, state line. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Now he must have been with the railroad for up till his retirement then.
Well, he left. My mother died when I was 10 years old, and after about 3 years, and Dad roamed a little bit, and the 5 children lived down College Street by ourselves, therefore.
But y'all managed,
Yeah,
didn't you?
we never
You
get into
managed.
trouble. No.
But I did.
Okay. Cymbeline, if you were to review Grand Prairie, Texas, as it is today, what do you think has brought about many of the important changes that we have seen here in Grand Prairie? Other than a lot of people moving in, what do you think were some of the important things?
I couldn't begin.
All right.
tell you.
How about you, Mr. Kiesler?
Oh, I wouldn't even know where to start out.
Do you think maybe the North American plant
It
or
helped,
the coming of the
sure,
Navy,
sure. The Navy and all of
the
that.
World War II?
Because actually up until then, see, we were only about 2,000 population, less than that, actually, wasn't it? 1,500, 2,000.
Who do you think were some of the leading families in the surrounding area? You've named some of the important men in leadership. Who do you call to your memory of some of the important people that contributed from the outlying area?
Well, actually, one of the most important persons in Grand Prairie's growth was Johnny Trimble. Trimble.
John
The
Tremble.
library used to be named for him and his wife.
I see.
He did a multitude of work for the city, the school. Anytime they needed something or other, he was out working for it.
Now, this is the first time his name, I believe, has come up on our show, so
Yeah.
let's talk a little
It
bit
should come
about Mr. Trimble.
He was a treasurer for Lone Star Cement Company.
Go ahead.
But he contributed, he lived out here, and his wife's name was Ruth.
All right.
And I don't know of anybody that has contributed more to the town and also to the Presbyterian Church.
Then Mr.
than
John Trimble.
John Trimble did.
All right.
And there was no
brought,
benefit to it.
all right, what brought him to Grand Prairie?
Well, he married Ruth Pittman, used to be Pittman.
Ruth Pittman
And-
Trimble.
Yeah. And then they moved him.
What did he do for a living?
Well, he was with Trinity, Lone Star Cement. He was his secretary, treasurer.
For the Lone
Years.
Star
Lone
Cement.
Star Cement Company in Dallas. Now, I don't think it's there anymore, but
Do they have any children?
no children at all.
Okay.
It's a shame.
Well, I'm so glad you brought his name up to us. Are there other important people in this area that you have brought to mind that we like to put on this
Oh,
history
you
tape?
got Albert Smith was one of the, lived out south of town out here. Eileen Smith is his daughter. You know her.
Yes. Now, what did Mr. Albert Smith do for a living? Was he
Well,
a farmer?
He was a farmer. He owned a bunch of land out there, nearly 800 acres, but he was also president of the Grand Prairie State Bank for years.
All right. All right. Now, I don't believe
And he
his
was
name
also,
has come up
he
in
was
the
also
interview.
on the school board.
On the school board. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a very fine family.
All right, Mike, as far as you're another generation separated from these two wonderful people, tell us from your point of view, what has impressed you the most about Grand Prairie, Texas and its history and the changes that have come about? And just look out into your camera and talk to us.
Well, Grand Prairie is, I think, a real unique suburb. It has retained a lot of the attributes of a small town, and yet it's getting harder and harder to do it as large as it's becoming. I think, we're right at 100,000 now, are we not?
About 95.
Yeah, and it's grown so much within the past very few years, and yet it still retains a lot of the real good qualities of a small town. That's one of the main reasons I came back here, and after my wife Nancy and I married, we moved back here to live. And every time I think about moving, I think of my neighbors out in the area that we're living in, and I think again, because it's a nice town to live in, and it's a great town to grow up in, I think.
All right, and you're bringing up your family here in Grand Prairie, and I know you would be very negligent to Nancy and the family if you didn't name drop, but we've got to have grandchildren on this record too
Surely.
as we go along. Would you do that, Mike?
Well, surely. My wife Nancy is from Austin. We married in 1969, and she has taught with the Grand Prairie School District since our marriage. She's taking a short leave of absence now. And our daughter Christina is now 10 and is in the 5th grade at Eisenhower Elementary.
Wonderful. And does your daughter have any children?
Yes.
All right, name drop those for us,
Well,
Cymbeline.
indeed, and I want to brag.
Yes, do that. We have one more minute to brag.
All right. The youngest one, younger one, Mike, name for him,
All right.
will graduate from law school this year.
Oh,
at
wonderful.
Lubbock.
All right.
And John is in the University of Kansas and will get his master's this year.
Wonderful. And those are the two sons
Yes.
of your
my-
daughter.
Yes.
Wonderful. It has been a delight having the Kieslers with us today. It has just been wonderful. You added a lot to our history of Grand Prairie, Texas. Just being in Grand Prairie has added a lot, but you have added a lot to it with this interview that we'll go back and research the notes that we have gotten today. We want to thank you, Mr. L.E. Kiesler, Jr., and that we would tell you what the L stands for, but we are sworn to secrecy, Cymbeline and Mike. Thank you, Judge Kiesler, for taking the time to be with us. Give Nancy our regards as she mends from her trip to the hospital. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as